What's up, everyone? Adventures in Bitcoin. I thought I'd do a little video here to talk about, to kind of speculate a little bit as to why Bitcoin dipped yesterday. Let's say dip. Let's be careful with our terminology. Uh, let's stay away from words like crash. They're good for clickbait. Certain words like crash invoke panic, and that's something definitely we don't want to do. But reasons for the Bitcoin dip. So when you think about what do we know? We know that Bitcoin gave up $300, around 300, in less than a half hour, sometime yesterday. This usually indicates, when it happens that quickly, it indicates that a whale or whales working together sold a ton of Bitcoin, causing a short-term panic. Now you have to think, what would cause a whale like that to sell so much Bitcoin in such a short period of time? Now you got to think, what is a whale? Whale is someone who's has, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of Bitcoin, if not a million or millions of dollars invested in cryptocurrency. Now it's safe to say that someone who puts that much money into Bitcoin is already rich and is probably already a sophisticated investor and has a portfolio that's well diversified in stocks, bonds, what have you. So why would they put so much money into something risky as Bitcoin? If they're bullish on Bitcoin and they believe in the technology, maybe they're hoping to get more rich from it. But more likely is that they're doing it as a hedge or a safety net for the money that they've made. So they would take a certain portion of their portfolio and they put it into things like precious metals, like silver, gold, and in this case, Bitcoin. It would just be an extension of that. Something that's going to protect the investor from a dip in the US dollar or inflation where the dollar just doesn't buy you as much as it did previously. So they're looking at Bitcoin as a store of value. So what would cause this type of person to sell in such a short period of time and so much in such a short period of time? And how can we correlate that with what's going on right now in the economy, in the global economy and the local economy? And more importantly, how can we use that information in the future so we can get ahead of this maybe next time? So that caused me to take a look at what's going on in the world economically, at least very, very recently, as far as announcements from the Fed and other factors. So generally, the US economy outlook is very healthy, according to a bunch of key indicators. GDP growth, which is the gross domestic product, is around 3.1%, where 2 to 3% is a healthy range. We're exceeding that. Inflation and deflation is at a minimum, roughly about 2%. So how basically inflation affects Bitcoin is a hedge against bleak economic situations. I mean, just look at Venezuela, where people are turning to Bitcoin because they're just not earning enough money to pay for goods and services for their families to survive. So if inflation is looking good in the US, and all inflation is the rising cost of products and services. So your dollar isn't buying you the same amount it did before the inflation. Therefore, dollar equals bad, Bitcoin equals good. But when inflation is at a minimum, like it is right now, the reverse is true. So dollar equals good, Bitcoin equals bad. So that would be a reason for someone that's holding a ton of it to sell. Also, the stock market has been doing really, really good. Aside from yesterday, we had a little bit of a dip in the Dow Jones. But aside from that, the stock market has been doing very well. Unemployment rate has dropped from around 3.7%, though some experts argue it's really closer to 7.5% if you include people who are working part-time but they really want to work full-time. Also, people that may be disabled or just gave up looking for a job because they just can't get that job that they were making a lot of money in years ago, but they've just been out of the market so long. The Fed just announced last month that they're raising interest rates to 2.25%, and they're planning to raise it again in December, another quarter of a point. So what does that mean? That means long-term mortgages will be going up. The interest rates will be going up, and that'll be more attractive to investors to want to lend money out because it becomes more attractive than keeping it in Bitcoin. But to me, the fact that this thing didn't come crashing down based on that tells me a lot about the people that are currently holding Bitcoin. The majority of the holders are people that aren't doing it for speculation. They're not doing it. They're not speculative investors. They're not financial institutions. They're holding it as a store of value, and they believe in the technology. But hindsight is 2020. But I just have to talk about the things that I know and I believe. And we're at an apex here where something needs to happen. And a lot of people look at this chart and they see a lot of downward pressure. But I see maybe because I'm a glass half full kind of guy, I see the reverse. I see that there's a lot of support or pressure going up. Because if you look at these bottoms, I mean, it wanted to go down, and then at some point it just leveled off and then rounded off. Even if we take it into the dip, that's kind of where we're at. And if we zoom in, we have a lot of places for this to catch where there's severe support. There's this orange line here. I don't know if you can see it. Delete the yellow line I drew. There's the orange line, right here. And then you have this red support line, which goes way, way, way back, right? Back to last year. And then you have this Fibonacci retracement, which is the 0.786 retracement line that it has to catch on. And that's way down here at 5,070. So I definitely do not think it's time to panic sell or get out of Bitcoin. If anything, I'd be loading up my bags right about here. But that's just me. You can do what you want to do. That's all I wanted to say for today. Keep the faith. Don't get washed out from this dip. Stay profitable, my friends, and I'll see you on the next video.